To Sporting News AFL Finals preview presented by Dabble. I'm Kieran Francis, and joining me is Bryn Wakefield to talk about the first week of AFL Finals. One of the most exciting times of the year, and the first game we're going to be talking about is Collingwood Melbourne, the first qualifying final, Thursday night at the MCG. First, fourth. The odds of the game: Collingwood $1.85 to win, and Melbourne $1.95. So Collingwood slight favourites, based on their ladder position. The last time they met was on King's birthday, round 13, and Melbourne got the job done by 4 points in a pretty tight game. It actually broke Collingwood's 9-game winning streak. The past form for the teams, Collingwood has actually lost 3 of their past 5 games, which I think no team has won the flag have done that. A decent result against Essendon to finish the season, but they had losses against Brisbane, Hawthorn and Carlton. Melbourne, on the other hand, have won 4 of their past 5 games, and they had a brilliant win in the last game of the season against Sydney. 21 points. They had injuries and also nothing to play for. Bryn, how do you see this game panning out?
Yeah, Kieran, I think that the odds are fair. It's going to be a close game. Not a lot splitting these two teams. Probably if you look at recent form, you'd be sort of suggesting that Melbourne are on top, especially with their last meeting as well. I think Melbourne had a lot of scoring shots and opportunities in that game and sort of dominated around the ground. So it's a tough one to pick. Collingwood have obviously had a really, really great season, and they're probably just dealing with the loss of Moore and Dacos and sort of struggling through that. So if I had to pick, I would probably say Melbourne, although the loss of Jake Melksham, and we'll get to that, will hurt them a little bit in the long run.
It should be a close game, and what a way to start the AFL Finals series. What's your best bet for the game?
Yeah, so I was having a look at Clayton Oliver, 30-plus disposal. So that's at $1.75. And obviously he's coming back from a hamstring injury that sort of had put him in an injury cloud for most of the season or much of the season. Coming back, he's had, I think, 27, 14 and 25 possessions. So he hasn't quite hit that mark yet. But I'm backing him in. He's a great player. We're seeing his fitness coming back now, and he's had a bit of a rest pre-finals bye. And I think he'll get back to that 30-plus. Collingwood don't tend to use a tagger either. And if you look at Oliver's stats before the injury, 8 out of 10 games, he had the 30-plus mark. So I think he'll probably be able to get back to that level, especially in finals. Kieran, what was your best bet for this game?
Well, I've got the total match score being under 160.5. We know that finals football is really defensive. We know that scores are lower. And interestingly, Melbourne, in their last 8 games against finals teams, so the teams that are playing in the finals, only once have they covered 160.5, which leads me to believe that it's going to be a tight tussle. It's also going to rain on Thursday night, according to the weather. 60% chance of rain. There's also a bit of wind around. So, I mean, we know 160.5, teams scoring about 80 odd. But yeah, we know that Melbourne's defence reigns supreme. As we'll talk about later, Darcy Moore will probably be back, and Collingwood's defence will probably be up and going as well. I mean, you expect a tight tussle. Yeah, so it's $1.98 for under 160.5. And it's actually $1.78 for over. So I think you're getting value for under 160.5. A player to watch in the game, we'll talk about All-Australian wingman Josh Dacos. Josh Dacos has what a season to make All-Australian. His brother stepped up, Nick, and then he's also stepped up himself in response. Since Nick Dacos got injured 4 weeks ago, we've seen Josh Dacos get 38 against Geelong, 26 against Brisbane, and 25 against Essendon. And we've seen him become almost a creative fulcrum of the team. How do you see Dacos's role and importance to Collingwood's progression through the finals?
He's going to be very important, yeah, especially without his brother Nick. Like you said, 25 plus in the last 2 games, also a goal in the last 2 games as well. So he's been one of their best players, and probably when you look at their midfield, probably the speed and the age probably lets them down a little bit, and we've seen that. So some really great players there still, obviously, like Scott Pendlebury and Tom Mitchell, but Josh Dacos, yeah, he adds that creative element to the side that's going to be really important throughout the entirety of the finals.
And the key team news for the finals, Collingwood will be hoping to get back Darcy Moore and Nathan Murphy into their backline. We know that Nick Dacos is not going to play, and he'll hopefully be back for a second final that Collingwood play, whether that be a semi or a prelim. How important are Darcy Moore and Nathan Murphy to the structure? And which player do you kind of player or players do you kind of see maybe making way for those two key defenders?
Yeah, they're hugely important. Obviously, Moore's the captain and Murphy, such an important player in their back line. That's sort of their two best defenders, really. So they're going to need to get them fit and healthy. Otherwise, I don't see Collingwood going super far into the finals. I think probably Billy Frampton's the obvious one to come out and sort of lose his spot in the side. Yeah, I think that's how I see it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Jeremy Howe's obviously spending some time up forward as well. So, Collingwood have been trying to make their forward line more unpredictable. So, maybe that means if Moore and Murphy are back, that Howe can play up forward and adds to that element. In terms of Melbourne, they're obviously been playing pretty well. We're not expecting a huge amount of team changes. The one forced change that we know is going to happen is that Jake Melksham has done his ACL and he's out. And Melksham's almost a career renaissance this season. 16 goals in 9 games since he got back into the team. Multiple goals in 6 games. He's been a leading target, taking marks. I guess, who is going to replace him? I mean, there's some of the options. Ben Brown, who's actually listed as a test injury, so he might be unlikely. Tom McDonald didn't play VFL last week, but was kept out, so he'd be fit for the game is an option as well. Or Melbourne could possibly look at using someone like a midfielder like James Jordan or even James Harms to come in and then maybe push Petrarca forward. I guess, how would you work it if you were in charge of Melbourne in terms of replacing Melksham?
Yeah, well, I think, like you said, he was an important leading target for them. So I would go with one of the tools, Ben Brown or Tom McDonald. You've seen most of the season, they haven't played a lot of games between them, really. So Ben Brown, 7 games, Tom McDonald, 6. He's been picked just a little bit less, although he did play in the wild card round in the VFL, kick 5 goals. So he's looking like he's in good form, and he probably is the player that I would pick. Just, Ben Brown might not be available and might not be fully fit. So, like I said, for structural purposes, you need that tool, you need that leading player. So I think Tom McDonald's the one Melbourne should go for.
I think Tom McDonald's a good pick. I think a forward line of McDonald, Fritsch and Van Rooyen, Talls is pretty decent. And Melbourne have obviously struggled in that area. I mean, they've even tried Brady Grundy as a forward at times. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see if James Harms comes in separately, even if he's not the player to come in, because that obviously gives the midfield more flexibility. We saw Brayshaw play plenty of midfield finals last year, and that allowed Petrarca to spend time forward. So it's going to be interesting to see in terms of Christian Petrarca's positioning. For me, I think that it's going to be a really close game. I think that Collingwood will get the job done. We know Collingwood are really strong in close games, but it should be an absolute cracking game. My tip's Collingwood.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.